Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure we're going to have more people joining us as their calendars ping them. But welcome, everyone, to the second Focus Cities webinar of 2018. My name is Esther Costiglione, and I am your moderator today. I'm the State Policy Manager with California Walks. We are the statewide voice for pedestrian safety and healthy walkable communities for people of all ages and abilities. We provide technical assistance to communities on how to create more walkable communities, and we also work at the state level to advance opportunities for active transportation. We are partners with UC Berkeley SafeTREC for our Focus Cities efforts. For those not familiar, SafeTREC stands for Safe Transportation Research and Education Center. They are a University of California, Berkeley research center affiliated with the Institute of Transportation Studies and the School of Public Health. Their mission is to reduce transportation-related injuries and fatalities through research, education, outreach, and community service. SafeTREC conducts research, provides technical assistance, and works with communities across California, educates the transportation safety professionals of tomorrow, and coordinates major transportation safety programs for the state of California. We'd also like to acknowledge the support of the California Office of Traffic Safety, who provided a grant through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for this program. We appreciate their dedicated support of community pedestrian and bicycle safety. Before we dive in, I have a couple of housekeeping reminders. Please be sure to mute your audio, and also know that we will be recording both the webinar's audio and chat features. We will make that recording available afterwards. If you do not want to be recorded, please refrain from talking or using the chat feature. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please type them in the chat box on your screen, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. I'm excited to introduce today's presenters, Maya Rosas and Jana Schwartz. Maya serves as Circulate San Diego's Director of Policy. She has 6 years of experience in active transportation advocacy and land use planning in both the nonprofit and private sectors in San Diego. She is a graduate of the San Diego State University Master in City Planning program, where she wrote her thesis on pedestrian collision risk factors in the city of San Diego. She co-authored Circulate San Diego's groundbreaking Vision Zero report in 2015. Formerly, she was a board member of the Uptown Planners, her community planning group, where she played a vital role of making important and technical city planning information easy to understand to her fellow community members on the board. Jana serves as a project coordinator for Circulate San Diego. She brings experience in active transportation planning and urban design with a focus in graphic communication and public engagement. Jana has worked in both the nonprofit and private sector and has helped provide improved open space and mobility opportunities to communities in California and the Midwest. She also has experience in research and producing publications, as well as working as an instructor for courses in planning and landscape architecture. She has a BS in landscape architecture and environmental design from UC Davis and a master's degree in city and regional planning from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our awesome partners at Circulate. So Maya, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I there for everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Esther. And thank you to California Walks, OTS, and Berkeley SafeTREC for making this happen today. We're excited to talk to you today about marketing Vision Zero with social media based on our experiences here in San Diego. We're going to share 2 examples of leveraging social media to get attention and ultimately make change with our Vision Zero campaign. But before we get started, we'd like to quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Maya, and I'll be talking to you for the first 15 minutes or so of the presentation.
And I'm Jana, and I'll be taking on the second half.
We'll do a Q&A after our presentation. Like I said, we'll be sharing 2 examples of how we used social media in our Vision Zero efforts to make streets safer for everyone. We'll start by giving a little bit of history on the evolution of Vision Zero in San Diego and our Fatal 15 campaign. This first half will focus on how we use social media in our advocacy efforts. In the second half of the webinar, we will go into a specific example of Vision Zero educational programming by looking closer at our Captain VZ campaign efforts, which utilized social media to help spread the word about our Vision Zero superhero and PSAs we made. After that, we'll transition into a discussion and save time for questions. While this webinar is about social media, there are many other common threads between our two examples we're going to share, like the press. We use social media to reach a wide audience, convey our message, and to ultimately positively influence stakeholders and decision makers. We also use old-fashioned media, newspaper articles and TV news coverage to the same effect, to reach a wide audience, convey our message, and have a positive influence. We hope that this webinar will help you put social media to use as an advocacy or education tool, give you a look into Circulate's Vision Zero strategies and what we have been able to accomplish, and apply these tools to other outreach programs that you are working on. So let's get started. But before we can jump into our Fatal 15 campaign, I'll give a brief background on Vision Zero in San Diego. In 2015, Circulate San Diego led the effort to get the city to become a Vision Zero city. Our mayor attended a press conference to announce the news that a resolution would be brought forward to the city council to make San Diego a Vision Zero city. My predecessor, Kathleen Ferrier, and I also co-authored a report on Vision Zero at the same time. The report had the dual purpose of introducing the new concept of Vision Zero to a San Diego audience and serving as an advocacy tool to get decision makers to get on board. Of course, adopting a resolution is easy compared to creating the needed cultural shift towards Vision Zero's safe systems approach, and becoming a Vision Zero city was just the first step in Circulate's efforts. Since 2015, Circulate and the Vision Zero Coalition have worked hard in pushing the city to dedicate more funding to Vision Zero projects, to pursue grants, and to prioritize safe streets in their transportation improvements. In the last 3 years, perhaps our biggest win so far has been getting the city to successfully apply for a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant to pay for bulb outs and traffic calming on University Avenue, one of our Vision Zero corridors. I share that to make clear that there have been improvements at the city, progress has been made, but getting the city to dedicate its own funding to Vision Zero projects through the annual budget process has continued to be a challenge. With all that context in mind, in 2017, Circulate launched the Fatal 15 campaign, which simply called for adding basic pedestrian safety improvements, such as high visibility continental crosswalks, an audible countdown timer, and a visual countdown signal to the 15 most dangerous intersections in the city. We found the 15 most dangerous intersections that did not have these basic safety features in place and asked for it in our city budget advocacy. The campaign was designed to provide a relatively quick and inexpensive Vision Zero project for the city to commit to that would show their commitment to addressing safety where people's lives are most at risk. Yet in 2017, the first year of our campaign, this ask did not go very far. A few of the intersections received some or all of the improvements we were asking for, but it was not comprehensive, and the city did not commit to fixing the Fatal 15 in its annual budget. In looking back at this and other advocacy efforts, our campaigns seem to follow a pattern, this spiral model here. The basic premise is this: start with a specific ask, like funding the Fatal 15 improvements in the next budget cycle, which is what we'll be explaining shortly. This is the foundation. Get the word out using the platforms available to you, your website blog, Facebook, Twitter, and e-blasts. This is growing your base through media updates. Find a hook, whether it be a message or event, that will get or renew people's attention and rally their support. This is a momentum building event. Continue with media updates and building momentum as needed, and if things fall into place, you may have a victory to celebrate. Once you've gotten that victory, repeat all over, but instead of going back to the base, build on the previous success as the spiral grows bigger with bigger asks, and making sure to give credit where credit is due. So here's our first example. At the beginning of 2018, we relaunched the Fatal 15 campaign as a part of our budget advocacy efforts by updating our list of Fatal 15 intersections and putting it in our letter to council members who were preparing their budget priority memoranda for the budget year. This letter was the start of the Fatal 15 campaign for 2018, where we laid out this and other major Vision Zero asks for the year. After we relaunched the campaign, we shared updates on our social media, such as how council members prioritized Vision Zero in their memos, which they released in January, after our letter had been sent to them. Our process is to upload our letters or blog updates on our website, and then post them on Facebook and Twitter, and put them in our regular bi-weekly e-blast called the Circulator. Once we post on Facebook and Twitter, our staff frequently retweet or share with their own commentary on their own personal pages, creating higher engagement and visibility. Another strategy we use on Twitter is to tag our biggest supporters as well as decision makers in our tweets. That way, more people engage and we make sure the right people see the message. The message is really important, and remembering to give credit where credit is due by acknowledging when decision makers do the right thing is key. Like this example, where in the blog post, we highlighted how most council members, to different extents, prioritized Vision Zero in their budget priority memos. This was a good time to give them positive reinforcement and let them know that we are paying attention. San Diego's council members or their staff are very active on Twitter and absolutely appreciate and see when we are giving them kudos, and that builds credibility and trust. It's important to know what media outlets matter to your decision makers and make sure to get the message to them that way if possible. But just because the council members prioritized safe streets in their budget priority memos doesn't mean that it's made it into the budget quite yet. Now, in February, a month into our relaunched campaign, and several months before the budget gets adopted, we had to take advantage of a terrible thing. So early into 2018, there had been a huge rash of pedestrian fatalities, and these deaths demonstrated the dire need for Vision Zero to be prioritized in the budget. We at Circulate are in the practice of putting out press releases every time that we learn of a bicyclist or pedestrian's serious injury or death. And we're not afraid to use those situations to make sure people remember to focus on needed infrastructure improvements instead of victim blaming pedestrians, for example. So this here was a front page article in the San Diego Union Tribune, and this was the time to put pressure on the decision makers to fund Vision Zero projects and build our momentum. Looking back, this front page article was the key momentum building event, and it caught a lot of attention, but Circulate's message was familiar to anyone paying attention and made sure to put the responsibility on the city council and mayor to do the right thing. I worked closely with the reporter once he expressed interest in writing about the recent uptick in pedestrian deaths, to make sure he understood Vision Zero and focused on the city, not on pedestrian or driver behaviors. Of course, we made sure that this article was shared on social media as much as possible and asked the Vision Zero Coalition to help get it out too. So this cycle of social media and press continued based on our unchanging request to fix the Fatal 15 and invest in Vision Zero improvements across the city. We felt that we had momentum building leading up to the release of the draft city budget in April, and we decided to organize a press conference specifically for our Fatal 15 campaign. In talking to the mayor's office over this period of time, we realized that they were not committing to the Fatal 15. They weren't saying no, but they weren't saying yes, and it was getting close to crunch time if we were going to have any chance of getting it in the draft budget. We organized a press conference about the Fatal 15 and gave the mayor's office a final chance to make the commitment we were asking for. I made clear that the mayor or a representative could join the press conference if they made the commitment, but if not, we would go ahead with the press conference, demanding that he live up to his Vision Zero commitment and putting the responsibility on him. With those options, he agreed to fund the full Fatal 15 in the upcoming budget year. The mayor didn't attend, but we reframed the press conference around celebrating the city and the mayor for making this commitment to Vision Zero and the Fatal 15. Simultaneously, at the press conference, we had staff live tweet pictures from the event, thanking the mayor for his commitments. Later that afternoon, after we had tweeted and retweeted other advocates and news stories about the Fatal 15, the mayor himself tweeted about it. We shared this tweet on Twitter, Facebook, and in a special e-blast that gave a recap of the victory, specifically giving the mayor credit for making this commitment and sharing all the news coverage that came of it. And there was a ton of press, which made a lot of impressions in San Diego. We dutifully shared the coverage we received on social media to make sure everyone was aware of this commitment. This commitment was an important step for the city of San Diego. There is certainly a lot more to be done, but we're working on building on this victory to make even bigger change happen moving forward. We made sure to frame this as the 2018 Fatal 15, so we are fully expecting the city to commit to funding the 2019 Fatal 15 as a foundation, and we will build on that as a new baseline to ask for more investments in safety in San Diego.
Great, thanks, Maya. So next, we're going to dive into an outreach method Circulate San Diego crafted to make Vision Zero publicly identifiable. We came up with Captain VZ as a Vision Zero campaign strategy. Captain VZ came to be after the city of San Diego committed to Vision Zero, addressing the Fatal 15 and zero vehicle-related deaths by 2025. Captain VZ was created to make the Vision Zero campaign a visual identity. She's a strong woman representing an important cause. She is a powerful superhero both children and adults can relate to, and she looks unique enough from other mascots or icons to stand out and draw attention. It's not a coincidence that the look of Captain VZ plays into San Diego being the iconic landmark city of Comic-Con. Her aesthetic fits the character of this well-known convention and plays right into that theme. It is important to pick an icon that is locally specific and relevant. Think about what characteristics represent your city or region and use that as your starting point when shaping the identity of your project. We wanted to roll out Captain VZ with a bang. We sent out a press release to let the public know that there's a new superhero in town, and they would be able to meet Captain VZ at an upcoming press conference. The press release included information about the press conference, Captain VZ, and 2 public safety videos that Captain VZ featured. This press conference was important because it showed the next step beyond a commitment to Vision Zero and provided the opportunity for media coverage and the campaign to grow. This information was also shared on Circulate's Facebook and Twitter page to make it accessible to the general public. The more platforms this information could be shared improved the visibility of the effort and showed that this process is not only alive, but thriving. We want Captain VZ to be the face of Vision Zero San Diego, so there was a big marketing push to make this press conference inviting to everyone and highly anticipated. Captain VZ was present at the press conference to remind everyone to unleash their inner superhero and participate in the Vision Zero effort to make streets safer for everyone. There was a great turnout at this event. It included press, public agencies, the police department, OTS, who provided the grant funding for Captain VZ, and the public. After the press conference, the 2 public safety videos were released to show Captain VZ in action. Both of these videos were published to all of our social media platforms, shared by other groups, and continued to be viewed. You can check them both out as featured videos on our Facebook, but only after you're done listening to this presentation. Captain Beasy is active in the community, visiting schools, participating in events, and sharing safety tips for crossing the street and being a safe pedestrian. Through the engagement process, it's important to keep the identity of Captain Beasy true to the mission of Vision Zero. Captain Beasy only flies into communities where the city or the representative government have made a commitment to Vision Zero. If she were to visit sites that haven't committed to Vision Zero, her message would be watered down and attention to her work may be less impactful or recognized. She is particularly available to the Fatal 15 sites in helping those dangerous pockets, since those are the primary reasons for Captain Beasy's existence. The success of Captain Beasy is largely dependent on buy-in from schools, parents, students, and partnering organizations. These groups participate in events, they share their experience, and they help sustain the programming that continues to the greater Vision Zero 2025 goal. We share these success stories on social media to show how communities are engaging in the process and together helping to reach that goal. Like many long-range projects, it's important to build momentum and keep people interested. Our latest development is a comic book with a coloring book included. The comic book describes the story of Captain Beasy, and the coloring book goes over the 5 key steps for everyone to follow to safely cross the street. Just so you know, that's one of the public safety videos on our Facebook. These books will be available to school sites as a reward for students who walk to school safely. It's an important lesson to outsource help when needed. To help represent the image of your effort, we got help with the comic book art and the public safety videos because the product would be elevated to a more professional level and taken more seriously by the public. When thinking about your planning effort, account for these items when you're creating your budget and really think about the cost benefits of utilizing these types of resources. Research printing fees, how much it costs to make buttons or a comic book. Go into the project having an idea of how much these types of outreach methods cost and avoid getting into a money pinch later down the road when you really want to do something cool but you don't have the funds for it. Grants and partnerships for this type of project do exist and should be considered. These books have been distributed to a few school sites, but we are building up to an official launch of the book and other Captain Beasy swag. The launch will provide more media coverage opportunities and a new cycle of education and momentum.
So this is Maya again. Hopefully we were able to share useful information for your advocacy and education efforts in this webinar. Here again is our spiral pattern, which I'll review one last time. With the Fatal 15 example, we started with a specific ask, funding the Fatal 15 in the next budget cycle. That was the foundation. We got the word out using our website, blog, Facebook, Twitter, and e-blasts about pedestrian and bicyclist serious injuries and fatalities. This was our media update. We found a message that got or renewed people's attention and rallied their support, which was that there was a historic rate of pedestrian fatalities taking place in 2018, and we stayed on message about what the city could do about it. This built momentum and leverage. Once we got the Fatal 15 funded, we are now able to build on that success while giving credit to the decision makers who made the right decisions. Next year, we will expect to get the 2019 Fatal 15 funded and do the work to get even more Vision Zero improvements. As we get closer to 2025 and reaching our ultimate goal of 0 pedestrian deaths, we need to recognize the intermittent victories and the opportunities to use social media to grow our base of support and spread the word about our victories and our superheroes. So with that, Jana and I are available for any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Maya and Jana. I want to encourage everyone, if you have any questions, to please make sure you type them in the chat box. We're going to take some time now to run through them. So one of the questions that came through for you all is, can you talk more about the importance of staying on message with the focus campaign like the Fatal 15? What are the challenges and how do you address those as they come up?
That's a really important question. With something as big and systems changing as Vision Zero, it's really easy to see all of the many different ways that many different systems need to change and adapt to be able to reach this important goal as soon as possible. But what we've found is that to be able to start to make the shift in culture, it needs to be one step at a time. And while the Fatal 15 is 15 intersections out of the entire city of San Diego, which is just one city in the entire county of San Diego, we found that that was the best way to make sure to funnel the efforts and make sure that something gets done and hope that that becomes the norm. And then we can build on that and make more happen. But especially in the early stages, it's important to take baby steps.
Awesome. And our next question comes from our awesome partners at LA Walks. Does Circulate San Diego have a dedicated communications staff person? If not, who on staff typically handles social media and blog posts? And how do you deal with sudden opportunities or crisis response if you don't have a dedicated staffer on communication?
We do not have a dedicated staffer for communications, and we're a fairly small organization. There's less than 10 of us here. And so really we share the responsibility between all of us. For example, I am the one who does the press releases and then puts them on social media and tries to track news coverage, especially if we're mentioned or quoted in it. We have our project coordinators who will share Captain BZ appearances on Facebook and social media to make sure everyone knows that we're doing the educational efforts and make sure that everyone knows who Captain BZ is. It's a shared responsibility, and it's a part of all of our work here. And so when it comes to big communications pushes, for example, organizing a press conference or crisis communications when there's a big issue, that's really just something where me as the policy director and the executive director come up with the plan and really just try to do the best we can. Certainly, I think there's even more that we could be doing if we had a communications person, but what I think we've been really successful at is coming up with a pretty basic formula for how to approach our communications efforts. So like when I was saying how we put out a press release when we learn that a pedestrian has died, this is something that we just know what to do. We don't need to consult each other. I put together the press release, put it out there, tweet, Facebook, collect any articles that come out about it, and go from there. So I think just making it a more, having a plan in advance if you don't have a communications person has helped us a lot in being able to be responsive.
Awesome. And I know sometimes with those plans, it's also important to have some of those posts sort of pre-populated and ready to go out. Do you guys do that? And if so, about how many like draft posts do you guys do per issue that you guys are addressing, like for Facebook, Twitter, things like that?
So I know there's a couple different strategies out there for using software or apps like Hootsuite. Hootsuite is something where you can upload a draft tweet and a Facebook post and probably Instagram too, and schedule it to go out at a specific time. And I know that other nonprofits I've worked with, they use that during press conferences where they will before the press conference, they will get a quote from a speaker and then have that go out in the middle of the press conference so that it's very visible on Twitter or Facebook. We actually don't do it for these types of events. We've enjoyed being able to kind of more spontaneously respond and engage during big events. We actually use Hootsuite more for our regular social media use, things that we know ahead of time, like an article that came out, but it's not super urgent to get it out there, so we'll just schedule it to come out, on some Tuesday morning, and use that kind of as our filler for our regular social media engagement.
Awesome. And another question that came through were any strategies or sort of recipes that you have found make your post successful?
That's a good question. The one thing that I mentioned about tagging people, that's been really successful at getting that engagement. And it's not just tagging people like at the end of some text, but something that we've recently started doing is attaching pictures on our tweets and then tagging people in the pictures so it doesn't kind of interrupt the text or make it long and blocky, but people still get the message, and more frequently than not, they'll retweet, they'll engage, they'll do something with it. So that's been a really successful tool, and you can tag up to 10 people in a tweet. Usually for Facebook or Twitter, it's been pretty easy to get people to engage if it's not just simply copying and pasting like the headline of an article, but like actually putting in some commentary, putting in a quote if one of us are quoted in an article, putting that in as our text of a tweet or a Facebook. So just making our social media posts unique seems to be really helpful and getting people engaged.
Awesome. And I have one more question from the first part of the presentation, and then I have a few more on Captain BZ, so I'm saving those. But this next question asks, do you plan on highlighting actions at these different intersections that you talked about, such as the start of construction on these pedestrian safety improvements? How do you keep the conversation going on social media after the major victory of getting the support and funding from cities?
Yeah, actually, I think that was a part of why the Fatal 15 was something that could be successful and get the decision makers to go along with it, because it provides so many opportunities to revisit it and to acknowledge that the city is the one making these changes, and for us to keep talking about Vision Zero. So they said that they were going to fix these Fatal 15 in intersections in 1 year. So that's 15 different opportunities for us to be posting on Facebook, for us to be talking about Vision Zero, and for us to be acknowledging the decision makers who make this happen. The second part of that question, I don't quite remember.
That's okay. Let me read it over to you. It says, how do you keep the conversation going on social media for those big victories? And then the other part of it was, how do you plan on highlighting the different intersections, such as the construction for those pedestrian safety improvements?
So how we keep the conversation going, something we've become really successful at, and again, this is kind of now just part of our plan, our social media plan, is that, for example, a new article comes out on Vision Zero that isn't related to the Fatal 15, but we will tweet that article, and then we'll reply tweet or quote retweet that article and say, this comes a couple months after the city agreed to fund the Fatal 15, but for example, more must be done to make our streets safe. So we keep going back to our victories in reference when something related comes up, but yeah, we don't just move on entirely. We try to bring those victories, our reports, back into the forefront whenever a new Vision Zero story comes out.
Awesome. And so we at California Walks and our partners at SafeTREC have shared that we love Captain Beasy. We think it's such a great way to talk about, the issues that are happening, and it's also a way to bring it to more of a localized flavor. And so you guys talked a little bit about, the thought of making Captain Beasy in this connection to Comic-Con. And have you guys found that that connection has really led to her popularity, having that connection with San Diego and the residents there? And find a way to make this work also relevant locally by doing something like that?
That's a great question. I think, truthfully, there hasn't been quite as much of a tie-in with the Comic-Con audience, but with the kids, it's been tremendously successful. That's not generally the audience that attends Comic-Con, so in that way, no, there isn't that connection there. But overall, the kids love her. They see her as this icon, and that's been really great to see, because as we all know, kids are really a great vessel for bringing a lesson home and teaching parents about the importance of walking safely and being a safe pedestrian. I don't know, Maya, if you have anything to add.
We've had thoughts about how to bring Captain Beasy more directly into Comic-Con. We tentatively talk about bringing her out during Comic-Con and having her talk to the people walking by, the huge crowds. But really, yes, there is that connection between San Diego Comic-Con and Captain Beasy being a superhero, but superheroes are pretty universal. It's not just a San Diego thing. I think most people who like Marvel comics and whatnot will enjoy that connection and the novelty of a superhero. And of course, making it as local as possible is great. And we designed Captain Beasy to be a young Latina woman, because that, of course, works with San Diego's demographics and is more identifiable with San Diego. But superheroes are universal.
Awesome, thanks for that. And we have a question from our partners at Bakersfield. So Bakersfield is not a Vision Zero city. Can you expand a little on why Captain Beasy's message would be changed by visiting a non-VZ city? I know you guys talked a little bit about the impact of her visiting some of those areas that are not in the VZ. So I think this question kind of goes back to that in terms of talking more about how that message changes.
Well, Captain Beasy is the superhero that is working towards making Vision Zero a reality, but we want to put her superpowers to good use where cities have made that commitment and are ready to make those changes. And getting more specifically to why we don't necessarily want to bring her to other cities that don't have the Vision Zero commitment is that if a city hasn't made the commitment, but you have a Vision Zero superhero showing up, it may not make clear to the students, to the parents, that Vision Zero is not actually an agreed upon policy that the city has. And we want to make sure that cities take Vision Zero seriously, make that commitment, and then Captain Beasy can come in and help out to work on the educational aspects of it. But we don't want to dilute her message by talking about Vision Zero in cities that don't actually have Vision Zero as a goal that they're working towards.
Awesome. And then we have two questions that are related, so I'm going to combine them. Sometimes organizations have limited budgets. You talked a little bit about partnerships and grants. Any tips for how other orgs can consider increasing their budgets to include these high quality materials that you mentioned? And then the other question that kind of goes hand in hand is, what would you estimate the budget has been for Captain Beasy?
Take the first part.
Sorry, can you say the first part one more time?
Sure. So sometimes organizations have limited budgets. So you talked a little bit about partnerships and grants. Any tips for how organizations can or should consider increasing those budgets to include the high quality materials? I think you know, I think what the question's getting at is like, should they focus on increasing their print budget? Should they focus on, you know, did you spend any on like any media like radio or newspaper or things like that? So what are some of those areas where you would recommend increasing those budgets so that if they were looking to do something like Captain VZ, they would know where to address that in their budget for those high quality materials?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it does tie into kind of front loading your planning effort to think about your budget. Number one, not to say that all these ideas are going to come to you immediately, but hopefully through this presentation and this dialogue, you start thinking about some alternative ways to approach outreach, and some of these are more costly. I think tapping into the second part of the question, Captain VZ has been a pretty developed effort, which with that comes a larger price tag, but maybe smaller items like buttons or something interactive. People love handouts. Kind of looking into what those cost. It's a lot easier to ask for money up front than to ask for it along the way as a project is moving through. So I think research and kind of being familiar with what items specifically are available to you is a really great first step. But of course, grants come up at optimal times sometimes. So if you come up with a great idea and there are grants available as a project is going on, there have been several efforts that Circulate has combined, maybe a few grant efforts in order to provide a larger budget for outreach.
I think that the Captain VZ project has really been an iterative process over the last couple of years, where we have some grants that are, for example, we're supposed to do education in schools, and that is funding our staff time. And then we simultaneously or afterwards pursue grants that actually can't even be spent on staff time, but are only for materials, or a portion of a grant is supposed to be for materials. So we keep building on that back and forth and making our Safe Routes to Schools presentations incorporate Captain VZ once we were able to design the costume. So it just keeps going back and forth between finding a materials budget and then applying the new cool educational materials that we develop, or the costume, applying those to our educational efforts, which are funded through grants for our staff time. As in terms of the budget for Captain VZ, we don't actually have a fully refined budget for the full development, because we've probably had 5 different grants help make Captain VZ a reality over the last couple of years. So we don't have some big budget that we're working towards fulfilling so that we can roll out this campaign. It's just been taking advantage of what we can to build this as an investment and a resource moving forward.
Awesome. And we have one more question. So if anyone has any pressing things, please type it in the chat box, or this one might be our last one. If we are a Vision Zero city, how can we schedule a Captain VZ appearance when we're ready?
Well, we certainly would be happy to talk about that. That's something we can talk about offline. Captain VZ would be happy to visit other Vision Zero cities. But I'd also encourage starting to work towards creating your own version of educational superhero or icon that can live in your city. But certainly Captain VZ can fly long distances.
Awesome. So it looks like we've reached the end of the chat. There's no other questions in the queue, but if you all do have any questions that you didn't ask today, we will be sharing contact information. You can always share via the listserv, and we can try to get those questions answered. So I'm going to do just a few wrap-ups. We definitely want to appreciate and thank Maya and Jana for putting together this awesome presentation. I know that California Walks and UC Berkeley SafeTREC, we're just so excited about this opportunity to share all of the amazing efforts that they've been doing in San Diego. So our next action steps are to make sure that we share the links to the recording, the slides, speaker content, and any related resources after the call. We will also be having our next Focus Cities webinar on August 7th at 11 a.m. So please be sure you mark your calendars. Again, that's August 7th at 11 a.m. It's a little bit quicker between these next two webinars than our previous ones. And I just want to thank you all for joining us this morning to talk a little bit more and hear about the great work that's happening in San Diego. And we are at the end of our session together. So just a reminder that all of these things will be shared with you shortly. And thank you so much for sharing part of your day with us. And I hope you'll have an amazing week. Thanks so much, Maya and Jana. And thank you, Tracy, on the SafeTREC team for all of your technical assistance with the webinar. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.